Gather round the fire, kin of the long line, where shadows dance on faces etched by seasons of toil. Picture the sturdy hearth of our forebears, its embers fed by hands that wove cloth, tilled soil, and cradled the young through frost and flood. Now heed this shadow falling over the circle. What shadows the path of the people when the hands that once kindled life turn instead to gathering trinkets from distant winds, leaving the cradle bare and the fields whispering to empty air?
In the dawn of a clan's strength, every woman stood shoulder to hearth with man and elder, her labor the warp and weft of survival. She spun wool from the flock's own fleece, kneaded bread from the earth's yield, and nursed the babes who would one day mend the roof and mend the fence. But as stores grew plump from shared sweat, a hush crept in. Hands that built turned to claiming finer weaves from afar, chasing gleam over grain. The loom fell quiet, the spindle idle. Here's what followed: the young wives, eyes on distant shine, let the evening meal grow thin, their strength sapped not by storm but by the weight of wants unearned.
But the cost ran deeper, threading through the bonds of hearth and hall. Elders watched, as daughters, once bound to the steady builder, the man of calloused palm who felled timber and drew water, now held out for a rarer bird, a king of endless bounty. The sturdy ones, who shared the yoke and mended nets, found no place at the board. Households stood half-formed, doors unlatched to laughter that never came. Meanwhile, the circle of kin frayed, promises unspoken, left paths between homes overgrown, trust, like a forgotten spring running dry under unshared burdens.
Here's what followed. As the hush widened, neighborhoods that once rang with voices raising roofs together now echoed with solitude. The wise among women, gatekeepers of the circle's warmth, shaped choices not by the morrow's need but by the comfort of the hour. Leaders rose not from those who tracked game through blizzard or guarded the flock from wolf shadow, but from whispers of favor. Tools lay rusting in the shed, fields turned to bramble as hands chased fleeting ease. Reciprocity crumbled, the neighbor's fence unrepaired, the shared well untended, while elders sat by cooling ashes, their stories unanswered by the young who never gathered.
Yet the narrowing deepened, kin of the flame. Lands that fed generations through plow and prayer now lay fallow, their bounty traded for baubles that fed no belly come winter. Children, the living bridge to tomorrow, grew scarce as dew on parched earth. Cradles rocked to silence, their songs stolen by the chase for more. Branches snapped from the family tree, unwalked trails faded to grass, and the circle's fire dimmed, its light no longer calling wanderers home. What would your ancestors have whispered by this hearth, seeing labor forsaken for luxury's lure?
Thus the elder declares, if this turning from duty endures, households fracture like untended clay, children go hungry by barren boards, elders shiver alone in shadowed halls, fields yield to weed and waste, and the voices of the line fade to wind over cold stone, heed the hearth's truth. Survival rests on labor shared, cradles filled, kin bound and land stewarded, or the circle breaks and the people vanish like mist before dawn.
Gather round the fire, kin of the long line, where shadows dance on faces etched by seasons of toil. If the words of our forebears stirred recognition in your heart, carry that feeling outward. Speak it and pass it along to honor it with your presence. Each act of sharing strengthens the line of inquiry, feeding the labor of understanding that threads through generations. Your voice added to the circle keeps the search for truth alive, as we examine not only ourselves, but also the patterns of the world we inherit. Leave your marks where they may guide others in comments or reflections, and follow the paths we have traced to sources of knowledge. Know that by standing with this work you sustain the effort. Otherwise, households fracture like untended clay, children go hungry by barren boards, elders shiver alone in shadowed halls, fields yield to weed and waste, and voices fade to wind over cold stone. Heed this hearth's truth. Survival rests on labor shared, or else the circle breaks and our people vanish like mist before dawn.